to burn white fat cells. This is actually really what people want, and if they can learn how to beige over their white cells, that's a bonus. But I think most people actually, while you're here, if I'm correct, is most of you, as you said at the beginning, struggle with excess fat, which is usually excess white fat cells and excess subcutaneous fat and visceral fat, right? We said it at the beginning, okay? So let's just talk really quickly about some basic principles. It's not any different from what I have said before. But the first thing, if you want to learn how to burn more white fat cells, it's not just about this like craze about let's just jump into a cold bath and suddenly you're going to change your body composition. You're going to change your body composition from good principles. And these will always be the same, right? Good principles are you eat healthy and good nutritious food. And I always say you want to avoid trans fat. You want to anything baked goods or sugary drinks, any highly refined products, a lot of bars and all of that. Like be conscious of that. And I would encourage you to eat more whole natural foods, a lot of vegetables and fruit. Now, one of the browning processes of white fat cells to beige fat cells. By the way, people will say white fat cells to brown fat cells because it's just the layman term. So if I ever say that really quickly, just know I mean beige. I don't mean like it turns to brown, but it beiges. But yeah, so turning white fat cells to beige is actually shown to be can help if you have some of the healthy like antioxidants like resveratrol, quercetin, I might not even say that right, but these are actually from a lot of your fruits and vegetables like apples, onions, red berries, and stuff like that. So it's like no different than what I have said before about eating healthy whole foods and making sure you have lots of really healthy antioxidants in your body, right? As well, in your healthy nutrition, you want to make sure you eat complex carbs along with protein and with healthy fats. So no different than what Clarice has always said about eating healthy macro balanced meals, right? Because the gene expression of a lot of your body and how it's operating, it operates best always when it is the healthiest and is operating at maximum functional level, right? And so when you think about if you have too much white fat cells, you limit the good hormones from being produced and you create more storage hormone in your body, right? So that's why it's not just about like just these tactics or things like that to turn it to a brown fat cell, but to actually really eat healthy so you can lower white fat cells in your body and actually feed the healthy muscles, probably give it the better environment for the white fat cells to be activated over to a brown fat cell, right? That's why I speak a lot about this, because like if you don't have a good balance in your nutrition, and you have too much inflammatory markers, or you have too much too much protein, too much fat, too much carbs, they're going to turn into what? White fat cells, right? So how many of you feel like you need to understand your nutrition better and macros better? Put nutrition or macros there, okay? And it's no different than what I've said before. These are basics of I don't know, fat reduction 101, basics of fat reduction 101, nutrition macros. If you feel like you need more help with that, nutrition macros, put that below. Another thing would be making sure that you sleep 6 to 8 hours so that you have proper resetting of the functions of your body. So that if you did have your white fat cells trying to turn over to more of a beige fat cell, you are resetting it properly all the time. And as well, this like sleep and managing stress is also another one. So like this more lifestyle factors. So managing stress, because we're talking about reducing white fat cells in your body, right? So managing stress is about managing cortisol. And cortisol, I've spoken a lot about. This type of hormone will activate belly fat, right? And so the belly fat that you guys mentioned, or the visceral fat that you have, this type of hormone, if you have too much stress in your life, it turns more of the things you eat into a fat storage, right? So I talked about white fat cells having a big lipid in there. So you're kind of sending signals for it to turn more of your cellular structure into white fat cells, okay? So how many of you feel like you need to manage your stress better? Put cortisol below. Cortisol, because if you don't get enough sleep, it's also cortisol, right? How many of you feel like you need to manage your cortisol better? Put cortisol. So that's another thing to help reduce white fat cells. Okay, so nutrition macros is top. Like nutrition is key if you really want to reduce percentage body fat in your body. Cortisol is another big one. Cortisol is even more important for belly fat, right? Belly fat. And of course, I've done lots of lives on this, is so complicated, involved with the where it goes in the belly. So knowing how to control that is very important. So do beige fat cells look different on your body? Yeah, they like, as in like visually, I would say that they like under the cellular microscope, the microscope, they look different. They actually are like a white fat cell, but with more mitochondria in it, basically. So that's why they're beige. Does that make sense? They're beige, and then they are probably, because they're more metabolically active, just probably not as loose, right? It's white fat cells when it doesn't have a lot of like structure, that is kind of a little bit more looser and it can hang a little bit more. It's kind of an in-between, right? So again, I think like it's not like something that you can say for sure, like, I don't know if they've cut open enough people, Vivian, at this point, you know. That's why I said more research has to be done. But I do know that they are basically, you know, it's usually firmer. Brown fat cells are firm, white fat cells are kind of looser. Then beige is kind of like an in-between. That makes sense, right? And I think I did a live on cortisol really early on in the group, and that cortisol, I talk about why it impacts fat deposit, because of how cortisol impacts insulin, and then insulin impacts sugar uptake in your body. So again, if you haven't seen that cortisol live, you might want to drop cortisol, because that is one of the reasons why you could potentially have more fat on your body, or you're at a stall out, right? A stall out that you can't move because you just have too much cortisol going on in your system. So another thing that can help you reduce the white fat cells could be exercise, which I mentioned earlier. So exercise, it says that basically some of the research that they've done is that like the level of the irisin that is in the beige fat cells, it actually raises that hormone level in the beiging process. And so it then means that your cells can actually produce more heat and actually be more metabolically active. So exercise raises that hormone that helps the potential browning process of your cells. But again, that really is no different than what we always have said. Eat really healthy, whole foods, macro balanced meals, and exercise, right? This is not really that different. It's just understanding a different science structure behind that. But also I would say, like, even if the research being produced on brown fat cells producing more of this type of hormone, exercise in its own can have an encyclopedia written on it, right? Exercise increases your blood flow throughout your body. It allows detoxification, waste products being moved faster through your body, because if you have too much waste products, then you start having inflammation. Exercise allows for healthy hormones to be produced, right? The healthy, happier hormones. So mentally, you're actually better. Increases insulin sensitivity, because when you exercise, you teach the body to utilize glucose better. So, I mean, yes, like what I'm saying is it's really interesting to have all of this new science behind it. But it's no different from what everything we've have talked about, that these baseline things of why you should be moving all the time, you should be exercising, is still foundational to it, even if there was no brown fat. Does that make sense? Even if there was no brown fat, you should be exercising. Even if there was no brown fat, you should be eating healthy, right? And that's why I'm not a huge fan of, like, it's not about jumping on bandwagons or anything like that. It's about understanding your foundation principles and sticking to it, right? Regardless of all these things up and down all the time, foundationally, you know you should be exercising. Foundationally, you know you should be eating whole natural foods and should be reducing, all these bars and shakes and things that you like to eat a lot of in the fitness world, right?